In this video, we're going to talk about your tabletop gaming hobby and how you can play more games. So if you're watching this, you're probably into something like Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar or even Kings of War, um, and even other things like playing D&D and Pathfinder, or even box games like Descent, or some of my favorites are Scythe and Gloomhaven. Whatever your game is, whatever it is that brought you here to this channel to talk about tabletop hobbies, whatever your hobby is, it should bring you joy. Your hobby should be a point of relief. It should be something you look forward to. And if you are like me, you can sometimes find yourself in a position where you seem overwhelmed by an aspect of the hobby. And let me explain what I mean by that. Back to what I said a moment ago, I play Warhammer. I like to play Warhammer 40k. If you look up behind me over here, you can probably see it's blurred out. A Warhammer 40k Primaris Impulsor. I haven't built that yet. Actually, I just bought it today. I have a huge amount of models that I have not built or painted yet. And what I do is I'll go to the store and I will be walking through and I'll see a new box of models or a new model that I think looks cool, or I'll be sitting at my home flipping through a book or on a web page looking at a list and get thinking, oh yeah, it would be really cool to have this model. Or another thing is like I will see other pictures of other people's models and I'll get excited and I'll say it'd be really cool to have that in my army. And so I'll go to the hobby shop and I'll buy one. And then I'll put it on my shelf along with several other models that I've previously bought in the same fashion. And they'll sit there for the longest time. And then I'll come out and I'll look at them and I'll say, hey, I'm going to build this now. And I'll sit down and build it. And then it comes around to painting it. Now, here's the thing. Painting is not my strong suit. And so a lot of times I'll end up just putting a base coat on it and keep right on rolling to the next project, saying, oh, I'll come back to that and start filling in details later. And before I knew it, I had shelves full of Warhammer models that were either gray plastic or base coated. And it started giving me anxiety. And I came to the point where I didn't want to mess with it. I'd walk out and look at my hobby room and I'd look at this shelf full of models and I would remember all the great ideas I had. I'd get excited and I'd sit down and then think about having to get out the paint and get out the wet palette and get out the water pot and start, the whole process of, 2 or 3 thin coats or having to break out the airbrush, and it got overwhelming thinking about all the work I had to put into. And what I wanted a model that looked like the box art, and I didn't have that. When you look at the box art, it's very exciting. And you get thinking, oh yeah, I want to have that model in my army. But then you sit down and you open up this box and you pull it out and it's plastic in 1,000 pieces and you've got to cut it off the sprue, assemble it, and then paint it, and then it's up to you, and you realize it's up to you to make it look like that box art. And this is something else that I'm going to talk about in a different video. But the point that I'm trying to make is my hobby was giving me anxiety and I was not enjoying it. And so I'm going to have a different video talking about different things that we can do to get past that, to start, if it's a tabletop miniatures game like Warhammer, how can we get models on the table faster? I mean, I know there's a lot of videos out there about speed painting and stuff like that. That's not what I want to talk about. That's going to be something completely different. But what I want to talk about today is if you were experiencing something similar to that, I want to talk about dealing with that issue. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is your hobby should bring you joy. So, do it because you like it. And if there is an aspect of it that kind of makes you just want to shut down, just go past it. So, in the previous example, if you got to just assemble your models and put them on the table and play with gray plastic models, that's fine. Okay? I know there's people that, you know, say that you should have at least 3 colors, stuff like that, as far as like your models painted. Where I'm not talking about going to tournaments and stuff like that. I'm talking about unless that's what you're into, unless that's one of the things you got into the hobby for. Um, I'm talking about just making yourself get past that initial oomph. Um, Also, if you look behind, you can't see it. Once again, it's blurred out. I have several boxed games. I've got um, I've got Descent: Journeys in the Dark. My family for Christmas got me like 2 or 3 expansions for that game. Um, I have Adventures: Journeys in Middle Earth, the one that just came out. I actually sat down and played that a couple weeks ago with my family. Um, I have several of these boxed board games, and for the longest time, like I would buy a game and I would stick it on. I'd break it out. I'd put card sleeves on all the cards. I'd organize all the pieces, punch everything out, put it back in the box. Like I'm gonna play that next weekend, and I'd put it on the shelf and wouldn't touch it for months. You know, and every single time I went to go pick it up, I would do the same thing. Oh, it's just I don't feel like breaking it all out. There's a lot of pieces. There's Twilight Imperium. That game, I got the 4th edition of that. I think it's 4th edition. And that game has got it's got so many pieces and so much upkeep. They say that like, I've never actually played all the way through that game. We've played it with my family a couple like 3 times, and I've never actually played it all the way through. That's a game they say it takes like 10 hours. But the thing was it was so much to set it up, and then we would go so long without playing it that we'd have to sit there and reread the rules. And so it would just sit on the shelf. And that was another thing. Like, I just had this slight little bit of anxiety and it would just push me away. So I had gotten into the habit of buying games and buying miniatures, but not playing them. And well, obviously, I mean, that's like why waste your money? Why go to the store and buy this? So that is the shortfall, or I really don't want to say it's like a shortcoming, but that is the issue that I want to talk about getting over today. So what is the thing that got you interested into your hobby? Whether it's board games or miniature games or just buying miniatures to paint them or building models, you know, RC race cars or planes, whatever your hobby is. Why did you get into it? Um, we'll use Warhammer for an example. Like, did you get into Warhammer because you just thought the models looked cool and you just seen some people playing it? Um, was it the story and the lore behind it? Was it the idea of going to competitions, going to like an ITC tournament? Was it a combination of those things? Focus on those things. Um, as far as like painting them, like if that's an issue, if that's what's holding you up, is like you want to make your stuff look like box art, and you feel overwhelmed by that, don't be. Just try to get your mind past it. Like we have to force ourselves to come out of this state of apprehension. A lot of times, people, it's real easy to go in and sit down in front of a computer screen and just scroll up and down Games Workshop's website and look at the cool models and say, "Oh, I can buy one of those and put that in my army." But then when you get the model in your hand, making it happen. All right, we gotta walk away from the computer and the website. We gotta walk away from the YouTube videos. It's easy to watch a battle report, but it's not so easy to motivate yourself to actually put an army on the table. So we gotta just make ourselves get past that. So what's stopping you from enjoying your hobby? Um, a big thing that a lot of people, like a lot of people that I'm connected to, whether it's in a group somewhere or on some kind of social media, a lot of times I hear people, "Oh, I would play, but I don't have time," or "I would do this, but I don't have time." The average person who works a job to pay their own bills, nowadays we are very constrained for time. We're working, trying to work a 40-hour work week, and some people are doing that. They're going to work full time and going to school full time. People trying to, you know, advance their education or go further in their career. And by all means, that's important stuff. One thing I will say here, and this is my opinion, I think your family should come first. There's a lot of people that I'm connected to. They say, "Oh, I don't have time because I got this going on with my family, or I've got that going on with my family. I got to take kids to soccer practice, and I got soccer games." Okay, that's 100%. Put your family first and squeeze your hobby in when you can. But I think also another thing is with us being so busy, with people being so busy, and obviously this is geared more towards adults. So if you're a younger person, school, straight up, 100%. If you're watching this and you're still in school, middle school, high school, focus on your grades. Like, you don't need to come home and put your algebra homework down and go pick up a Warhammer model or a D&D book if you're flunking algebra. Okay? And I might sound like an old guy and might sound like your dad, but here's the thing. I didn't do well in high school and I wish I did. I'm glad that I'm very fortunate that I have been able to go and continue my education and get better educated in my adult life, but do it now and do it right. But back to this, it's okay to have a hobby. You just got to figure out how to manage your time properly. A lot of people um, feel guilty for having a hobby if they have a family. Like, you work, 40 or 50 hours a week, and then maybe if you're, taking college classes, you come home and have to take work on schoolwork, or if you're a student, you're working hard, and you just think to yourself, my family never sees me. I'm always gone. So, like, if I try to go in here on Saturday and sit down and paint some Space Marines, they're going to feel like I'm ignoring them. And talk to your family about it. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you. I've talked to my family about it, and they don't mind that I have a hobby. They know it's, they've got things that they want to do, and they go and they do it. They have things that they want to have fun with, and they go and they do it. And one point about that, about feeling guilty about having a hobby and having family or responsibilities, you don't have to necessarily choose one over the other. You can get your family involved. My wife, she does not play Warhammer. She does not care about Warhammer lore. She does not like Warhammer, but she likes to tinker around with things. She likes to, like, for lack of a better term, she likes to pick at things, and she really likes to assemble and build Warhammer models, and so she will help me build my models. So I'm actually kind of lucky that a lot of times, like if I come home with a box of intercessors or a box of whatever, you name it, I can hand it to my wife and say, "Hey, you want to build these with me?" And a lot of times it turns into her building them while I'm over here painting something. And that's something like she'll just sit down and she'll put on something on YouTube or a video or a show on Hulu or something, and she'll just sit there and just work away on it. And if she has a question about how a model goes together, she'll ask me. And so, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, and I'm just using my wife as an example. Ask whoever that you want to spend time with. Ask them if they would like to get involved in your hobby with you. Tell them like, look, you don't have to totally nerd out with me, but hey, do you find this interesting? Another thing is, like I said, I like to play tabletop board games, like not like Monopoly and stuff like that, but like these other more intricate, involved games like that. Like I said earlier, like Descent. There's a game I have a 5-year old son. There's a game called Mice and Mystics, and all the characters are mice, and you're fighting these evil rats, and you're in the sewers under the castle. And go look it up on YouTube. There's all kinds of people doing videos playing it, and how to play it. But my boy is 5 years old, and the game says it's for like 6 and 7 year olds. And I bought this game because it reminded me of a book series that I read when I was a teenager, authored by a gentleman named Brian Jakes, called the Redwall series. And I got that whole book series, and I bought the entire every book in that series, and I intend on reading that to my son and then giving those to him. Well, this seemed like a fun, easy little game, and it was. And so this is one of those more intricate and fun, lay down the tiles and go delving through the dungeon type games, but it's something my son can play with me. And so last weekend, me, my wife, and my son, and his aunt, we all sat down and we played this game. And he didn't understand everything that was going on, and we had to help him through his turn, but he was able to roll the dice and move his mouse around and go kill the evil rats. And there was one point in time where he saved mommy from the evil rats, and that's all we heard for the rest of the night. Mommy, can I have a piece of candy? But I saved you from the rats. It was the cutest thing. So that's something else that you can consider. If you feel like you cannot have a hobby because you have to spend that time with your family, well, why can't you do both? It's not necessarily choosing one or the other. I like to play Fallout Wasteland Warfare. That is a game. My wife likes to watch me play Fallout on my Xbox. That is a game that she was very much interested in playing with me when I bought it, when it first came out, a couple years ago. And she legit will sit down and play that game with me. So, as far as like family goes, get them involved. Just talk to them. If you're having issues with not having enough time, that just comes down to putting time on the schedule. You know, take some time for you. Work wants you to work every Saturday. They want you to come in every Saturday. Tell them, here in 2 weeks, I'm taking a Saturday off. I need some me time. I work as a first responder. There's times that I just literally have to draw a hard line with them. Like, no, I'm not coming in. I'm not doing it. And I mean, some people, I understand you're in a position where you can't do that, that you'll literally lose your job. If you are in that position, I feel for you. And I hope your situation gets better. But you can still find time to do something fun. And literally, that's what this is all about. Like, if all we do, the only resource that you will never ever get more of is time. Every human being has an allotted amount of time that we will have in this world. And if you don't take some of that to, stop and, smell the flowers, or in this case, the paint and glue, you're going to look back at your life and regret it. So if you are that busy and you can't get time off from work, just try to sit down, each night and just plan out every night. I want to sit down and I'm going to paint for 1 hour. Even if you just paint, put like 2 coats of paint on one model each night, eventually you'll have a painted army. Your hobby should not get in the way of itself. So if you're sitting here watching this video and you look over here and there's a big shelf full of games that you have not played yet, um, models you have not built or painted yet, and you just like look at it and you feel like you're just going to shut down, like, oh, I can't even deal with that. Get past that. Make yourself walk over there, take a game off the shelf, take it out of the box, take the parts out, start messing with it, sit down with somebody, call someone up, play the game. Make yourself walk over there, pick up a model, and put it together. Um, if it's a tabletop game, a miniatures game like 40K, you know, get started with just try to assemble everything you've got, or make a list and assemble everything you need in that list, and then go play with it. Don't worry about painting it. Everybody has done it. Everybody has went and bought some Warhammer models, took them home, put them together, and they showed up the next week at the game shop with gray, unpainted, not even primed yet models, and put them on the board. And we've all done it. We've all been there. So nobody's going to judge you. And if there is some kind of tool that comes to that workshop to that game shop and wants to give you a hard time, just ignore them. Go find someone else to play with, because you're gonna find there are people like that. That guy does exist, and that's gonna be another video that I want to talk about. That I'm planning on making a series of videos about hobby problems, and this is the first one in it. What's stopping us from playing more games? So I'll leave you with that for now. And until next time, play more games.